All right, you ready, big dog?
Yep.
You're listening to ControlTalk Now, the Smart Buildings Podcast.
With the man, the myth, the legend, Ken Smyers and Eric Stromquist.
ControlTalk Now, the weekly podcast with building automation and smart building control news you can use.
Now, here's Eric.
Hey, welcome to Control Talk Now for the week ending December 13, 2015. My name is Eric Stromquist, and we talk about all things smart building controls, HVAC controls, and even some industrial controls on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings VideoCast and Podcast. I am joined, as usual, by my co-host, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show, big dog.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate that resounding introduction. And I have to tell you, the first thing that's really odd is we have a 70-degree day here in Pittsburgh. If it goes up one more degree, we're going to break a record. So, I mean, this is like absolutely strange. We have flies and bugs flying around here in December. I don't think I ever remember that.
I tell you what, it is really strange, Kenny. And I tell you what, that's just a testament to your dedication, man, because people that know you're quite a golfer. And to be inside in the studio recording a show when you could be out hitting the golf ball around, baby, that's some dedication. But yeah, that weather is really, really weird, man. I guess on one hand, it might be kind of cool because all those flies and bugs come out and then they get froze. So maybe we're not going to have as many next spring. But
but then the birds don't have anything to eat and all that other stuff. You know, it's always a consequence. So and then we have other things. You know, the spiders don't have anything to trap. I was down in South Africa once upon a time, and I remember seeing a gigantic billboard driving through on our way to the Kruger National Park, and it told you to please not step on any of these particular bugs, because if you did that, it would show you in the sequence, killing this bug led to this. That's, the boll weevils took over all the vegetation and the cotton and whatever. So they said, please don't. So it showed a picture of a foot coming down a little bug and said, please don't do this. So everything has a consequence. I agree, though. The more nature traps these insects and vermin out here and now, so that they don't come out in May and June, July, and ruin summer picnics, whatever. But we'll probably catch up. It'll get real cold here, probably right around Christmas, and turn white, and then everything will be back to normal.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's almost Christmas time, man. We're getting there. It's close. So I got to probably get on Amazon doing my Christmas shopping. I don't know about you, but I'm one of these guys, and our audience cannot tell my wife or my oldest daughter this, but I always shop Christmas Eve, man. I'm a last minute shopper, man. I used to love it back in the day before Amazon and stuff like that. You know, you'd be out, there wouldn't be that many people that'd be out shopping on Christmas Eve, but the people that were just like you. And, you go have a couple of drinks, you go shop, you make the quick decisions. It was in many ways a kinder, simpler time. And so I don't know, maybe Amazon is kind of like stepping on the bug, man. Maybe I was a boll weevil and now I'm becoming extinct. Who knows, man?
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because I used to do the same thing, because all the sales, the great sales, were on Christmas Eve. Yeah. And I remember Kaufman's used to have a floor-by-floor sale, and it'd say, shoppers, exciting sales, 50% reduction on floor 8 or floor 6 or whatever, pants or household goods or whatever. And a friend of mine's girlfriend worked there, and she would tell us where all the great sales were. Well, that, and plus, once upon a time, we used to get Christmas bonuses. Remember that? That used to happen on a Christmas Eve.
Right.
So that was kind of the money that you went shopping with. And so, but all that's changed, huh?
Well, I tell you what, just a special holiday greeting and warm wishes to our entire Control Trends community from around the world. And we sure do appreciate all of our viewers and all of our listeners. And Kenny, we got a great show this week. We got a couple of good guests. We got talking about around the world. We got Mike Welch from Control Network Solutions out of England, London, England. So we got him, and we got our girl from the Valley, Therese Sullivan, coming on a little bit later in the show. So stay tuned for that. But dude, it was a good week last week. We had a really big show last week, and we continued to play with the live stream. So one of the things that we had a big success with, we did a video stream on VFD training. We put together a playlist of absolutely the best VFD training classes and courses that we could find, everybody from ABB to Allen Bradley to Honeywell to Johnson Controls to Siemens. And so there was a great information. We streamed that for about 5 or 6 hours on Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. So I'm going to stream it again this week. Kenny, I don't know exactly when yet, But if you follow either myself at Eric Stromquist on Twitter or Ken Smyers at Ken Smyers, we will immediately tweet that out once that stream goes. And the way it works, the videos is kind of like a playlist. It repeats, and we'll stream that. And I'm trying to sort of hit the sweet spot with that, where maybe it's around noon our time, and then we're getting the people in Europe around 6 and the people in Asia a little bit later, so that everybody can sort of participate in that. But if you like that concept, or you have a time you'd recommend we do the stream, please reach out in comments on this post and let us know. All right, well, Kenny, let's get down to it, man. We had some good posts this week. Tell us about our first post.
Well, we sure did. The first post was probably the top trend of 2015 has been cybersecurity. And this post was done by Marc Petockâ, and it was a continuation of the business side of cybersecurity. And as everyone knows, Marc is a leading expert on cybersecurity, and he takes a really close, deep dive look at the ramifications and the financial impacts and consequences of not taking aggressive measures to protect your business against cyber attacks. And so, as Fred Gordy has mentioned too, there's influences now, industry influences, insurance influences, financial influences that say if you don't protect data, there's going to be a consequence for that. But so Marc has gone very, it's a nice article because it really gives a good summary from the business perspective. So the value of taking additional measures to increase the cyber security posture of your control systems far outweigh the risk of not making them secure. So his comments are that it used to be security through obscurity, and now we need to make that part of the C-level conversation. There needs to be budget allocations for security measures.
Right, Kenny, I think it is. And so for our listeners who might not know, if you're a Control Trends listener viewer, you definitely know who Marc Petockâ is, Vice President of Marketing at LinkSpring, but also along with Fred Gordy, another one of our contributors on Control Trends, two of the leading cybersecurity experts on the planet, vis-a-vis building automation controls. And, Marc points out the business case, Kenny, that the toll on Target, we covered that Target breach a couple of years ago, 2 years out, is now $290 million that they've had to pay back to everybody from credit card companies to consumers, not to mention the brand damage that has taken place. So,
and it's not over yet. It's not over yet. That's to date. And our good friend Mark Goodman, his book, Future Crimes, I'm not done with it yet. I'm on the 200-page, I think I'm on page 230, and I just read how the dark web, some of the big reasons why some of these hackers got started was back when they started discovering the loops and the security flaws in the software, people like Microsoft and those guys used to give them $500 rewards.
Yeah.
And it's one of them said, 500, how about 5 million? Because they started, but the Target, the hacking tools used to get into Target, do the damage they did, were purchased online. Even the main hacker sold that as a hacking tool on the dark web. Somebody picked it up and put it to dark uses, and it led to the Target fiasco. But I thought that was an interesting factoid that the guy who came up with the black whatever it was didn't even use it directly himself. He sold it to somebody that purchased it on the internet and then used it against Target.
Yeah, that's one of the things that sort of blows me away, Kenny. There's this whole thing called the deep web. I think they called it the Silk Road at one point in time. And there's a whole web underneath the web where all kinds of crazy stuff goes on. So,
well, they closed the Silk Road down.
Right. I heard they finally got that guy, but there's still a web within the web, right?
They say that 90% of the web is beneath it. It's like an iceberg. What we see with Google, Amazon, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff, that only represents not even 7% of the total action going on with the internet. The rest of it is submersed below in that dark region where it's unsupervised and it's basically lawless and whatever. So that's where they're the future crime is going. It's going to be extraordinary because the smartest people are going into the wrong side of the equation and doing great damage.
Right. And I'm not a financial investor by any stretch of the imagination, but I hear people tell me that the cybersecurity stocks are you remember what Microsoft and Intel were back in the late 90s. I mean, they're what they call the 10 baggers, 10 times your investment. Might be too late to get in on those. I don't know, but cybersecurity is showing up everywhere. It's big in the stock market. Everybody I talk to is talking about cybersecurity and the ramifications. So from a business perspective, sort of cycling back around to Marc Petockâ's post, I mean, that might be, everybody's trying to get a piece of that. Everybody's trying to get involved with that. So we'll keep you posted on that. We'll keep tracking it. But special thanks to Marc Petockâ for that, Kenny.
Well, and don't forget, we're giving a cybersecurity award, or actually Fred Gordia's this year at the Control Trends, because, again, it emerged as the peaking trend 2015. So it's a good and bad thing. But I think awareness and education and, team play. Everybody needs to be part of it and not be the weakest link in the chain. And hopefully every organization is starting to understand that and deal with it and identify an internal champion that be responsible. And then hopefully the C-suite people are allocating money, and then just hold it off. You can't stop it, but you can hopefully send it somewhere else, huh?
Well, yeah, no, I tell you, and here's a thought for you, Kenny. As you know, you and I've talked off air. I've been doing a study of World War I. I'm wondering if the cybersecurity war is not going to be dubbed at some point in time World War III, because the whole world's involved in it, and it is it's taking casualties left and right. So,
well, it's just all the fabulous brain power out there, and those guys, if they could have came up and had a different set of opportunities, they may be the brilliant people to ensure that there's there is law, instead of lawlessness, because they were given the numbers. You have so many, bright people in certain parts of the world that know where to go. They have no jobs. There's no markets. There's no intelligent place for them to go and do their stuff. So they created their own industry. They're that intelligent, and then there's the teamwork. It's the more people contribute to making things anonymous, the better survivability they all have. So to sustain their operations, they all give a piece away, which is an amazing concept if you think about it. Right.
Well, cool. And listen, Kenny, I did get a comment a couple weeks ago. I've been meaning to address this. Several people that watched the videocast have asked about the artwork behind me, right behind me here. And that is a collaboration. My wife, Anna, drew the picture, and my daughter, Evelyn, painted with her watercolors, painted it in, and Axel B has even painted a little bit on it too. So that is why that is hanging behind me. It's very near and dear to my heart. It's a Stromquist family collaboration, if you will. So,
I like it, bringing that collaboration. That's smooth there. That's why you do small on sales.
Yeah. Now it could be called a co-competition thing or
co-opetition. I'm going to hit you when I see you. I'm stepping on your foot. It's co-opetition,
which is where your competitors cooperate with you. So,
it's where you take the cannons and you put them out to increase them instead of pointing them at each other and trying to mercantilism and fighting over the limited PI to grow your business. You basically take your efforts and you cooperate. You still compete, but you're cooperating. So it's co-opetition. It's a fabulous Harvard study, and if I knew half of how to put it to work, I would be sitting here, I'll be in Hawaii doing this show instead of Pittsburgh.
Well, maybe one day soon. All right, buddy. Speaking about Hawaii, what do we have up next?
Well, it's good stuff here. This is KMCâ is another company. It's American owned and operated, and I tell you, these guys have constantly put forth new products that make an impact. The Simply VAV was one thing, but we get a chance to watch Rob Allen talk about the new router for KMCâ with David Bohlmann. David Bohlmann is one of the top support guys. He's nominated perennially for the product support specialist. Some people say he's the smartest guy up there. He's a physicist or something, and you ask him how to do something, he won't come back until he's got it fixed for it. But he talks about the new KMCâ controls BACnet multi-port router, and it's just a really good product. Rob does a great job on these 7 minutes in control. And he goes into, he allows Dave, he kind of pulls him through the feature benefit of that router, and just a great product from KMCâ.
Yeah, it is, Kenny. It is. And special thanks to Rob Allen. He does a show for Control Trends called 7 Minutes in Controls, as we jokingly talk about on the show from time to time. He thinks we're way too long-winded. We probably are, but definitely check out Rob Allen, 7 Minutes in Controls. And yeah, that was great. That little router is very flexible. Works with BACnet, very easy to set up, no software needed. So you can get that at places like DMS Controls or Stromquist & Company, two of our favorite distributors, as well as a host of other distributors across the country. So, sort of speaking about that a little bit too, Kenny, people are asking about the Control Trends TV sort of moniker we've come up with, and that's sort of a vision and a dream we have. So I'd like to just have like the streaming, now that we got the streaming down 24/7, where you knew on 8 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday night, you could turn into the Honeywell show, for example, or Wednesday, the Johnson Controls show. But that being said, if you have video content that you'd like us to post or stream on your behalf, you can just reach out to us, controltrends@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to do that. But that's something we're going to continue to do. You're going to see more streaming, more content. We want Control Trends to be your portal for all things video, and where you can tune in, and Kenny and I'll sort of cull through and curate the best of the best. But again, guys like Abel, a.k.a. the Controls Freak, we posted some of his stuff. He does some really good stuff. Scott Mintz, J2 Innovation, DG Logic, a lot of them are all coming out with the video content.
Well, also, Eric, you got, the industry now is changing, and social media impacts are plentiful. And we've been very fortunate to be amidst them. But now you're looking at the Bohlmann people are putting out videos, and we can consolidate all those videos. So when you're doing valving and you're preparing technicians and you're recruiting people, we can also help with wire. Like Connectâ does a great job of explaining in Honeywell Genesis what wire to use and where the mistakes are made. You look at Contemporary Controls and talk about how they give you so much information about BACnet, the do's and don'ts about networking. We have CR Monitor now. We have Varun Najarak, who is just like a professor of communications. He does a great job of just explaining things. So what your concept here, and it's evolving into, is that we could actually have probably the greatest portal for information inside of the HVAC. Even the functional devices and the other guys, Dwyer. They have so much video content that is just out there and very difficult to find. But when we put the theme together and we index it, then all of a sudden we're going to be hitting some very, very good spots where if you need to know something about something quickly, like gas pressure regulators with Steve or with Bill Jones
right.
and your technicians you have and what we can get from Maxitrol, Itron. There's just so much information available. And the idea that you have the 24/7 on Control Trends TV running that streaming thing, I think it's awesome. And the numbers are starting to show that people they don't know what it is yet, and they don't know how to capitalize it. But when we can get it across and explain it better, then all of a sudden we're going to start to see people respond to it. Because
right.
one thing, it doesn't sleep; it just goes on and on.
Right.
And it runs.
Well, so, Kenny, when we first got involved with Control Trends, there was not that much content out there. So we continue to generate content. We always will generate what we think is useful content in terms of training videos and interviews and shining the spotlights on the superstars of our industries and products. But now the challenge almost is there's too much content. So everybody's generating the content now. So if you're out there, you can find pretty much anything you want to on anything on YouTube, but what we're trying to go through and get the best of the best, so you can come to one spot and get the stuff that's really germane to our industry. So anything that Kenny and I post, we've looked at and we deem it really worthy. But again, that being said, if you have something regarding building automation controls, HVAC controls, boiler burner controls, even industrial controls that's relevant. Networking. Kenny and I will definitely post. But I'm thinking about doing a BACnet series, like just a BACnet stream, for example. Pulling some of the stuff down from Contemporary Controls and others, so that you could just spend a couple hours and go through that BACnet stream and really get an understanding of it. So that's an example, BACnet. Then we could do it by vendor. So like you mentioned Bohlmann earlier, we could have a Bohlmann day where we're streaming Bohlmann all day. So you can if you got a minute, you can tune in, you can check it out and look at the videos and see what's
like you did with the VFDs, Honeywell, the smart VFD, Siemens, the BT300,
right?
And Josh when he does the PIC valve. I mean, right. there are so many good themes. But now what we're doing is we can almost follow the mechanical section in a building and give people just again, we're trying to attract young people to our industry. These people are necessary to sustain the industry. If they see these libraries of information available and they're easily accessible and it makes sense to people, then we're going to start people to say, you know what, I think I could do that. I think I'd really like to do that. Or that looked like a challenging thing, because we do have the sexy stuff now coming in. We have the IoT people coming in. As Ken St. Clair has mentioned, we've got DG Logic, where they're writing fabulous visualization software. We've got J2 Fin 3.0 now that can basically do an incredible job from start to finish, a complete job. You have Niagara 4 coming out, the Niagara 4 software and hardware, the JC8000. Our industry just took a big jump forward, but that whole platform is going to be something that's going to probably be the vehicles we drive to control buildings for the next 10 years, because it's been very well thought out. It has a large room, and it reminds me like a school districts that grow. It's because whoever did the planning at the very beginning said we need more land. We need to get 100 more acres, because right now it looks like it's enough, but 10 years from now, hopefully our community is going to grow and our school district is going to enlarge. We need more property, more land. Well, products have to do that too, and so I think when you have a good roadmap, somebody can plan that good roadmap and then provide for that immediately, but give plenty of room for the future. And so we just have a whole lot of interesting elements to our industry that should get more people involved. But I think we got to get more technicians. We got to get more people involved, in the elementary schools to understand what their folks do for a living, what the trades can bring to them, and they're actually the highest paying jobs now in our area. We have a chronic shortage of tech people.
Well, yeah, I think it's like you said, that's a great industry again. But Kenny, you just completed your Niagara 4 certification, the online program. What was that experience like?
It was good. I stayed up late last night and finished it. I was determined. It's one of those ones that's like paying your taxes. It's still you got to be committed, and it was very interesting. I'm very glad that I was able to do it using the computer-based training opportunity. It saved me a great deal of expense, and we've got so much going on. But for our industry, basically, we're going through a pivot point. On certain levels, again, the world does not remain static, and if you do not move forward and you do not accept the change, then you'll be left behind, and you could even be orphaned. Your technology could be put inside of a nice little silo there because you didn't take any opportunities to upgrade Windows. You should be not doing everything you need to keep fully abreast of all the security things we're talking about. Well, the Niagara 4 does so much where it's addressing all those. It's HTML5 now. It's not giving up Java by any means, but the for all the smart devices and whatever, the HTML5 is going to solve a lot of things and make great progress there. There's more to come. Cybersecurity, I think I don't know if anybody put so much time and energy into establishing a secure environment, both in the hardware and the software. And then you have to migrate. So if you want the benefits of these new things, you can't remain static. You're going to have to take that next step forward. And so all in all, it was a great experience. It was challenging. I think that people are a little bit apprehensive, but they shouldn't be, because it's very well designed. It encourages you, it coaches you, and then challenges you. You can go back and you can and rewatch things. So right. I love that whole opportunity, because I never know, like, if I can't sleep, then I can work on stuff. That's why I do a lot of work is early morning or late at night. So that opportunity is unique for me. It was anyhow. I've gone to a lot of schools and a lot of training. So all in all, I would consider it a B+ event. Well, my point being, the screen bigger. You can see if you saw more. Right. I think that was the only criticism I had.
But the computer-based training, I think, is a trend we're going to see, and this gets sort of back to what we're saying. I mean, there's really, you have accessibility to get educated, through videos on YouTube or even the training that Niagara's put together. And that's a pretty bold step they took. I'm sure they'll improve upon it, but a B+ is a pretty good grade right out of the gate.
Or 4.5 stars. Like I say, because my computer, I couldn't. The only issue I had, and I shouldn't even probably say it across the board, is that I wanted to see things bigger. I couldn't expand the screen, and if I did, but again, it was a small thing. But
and Niagara and Tritium are up for several Control Trends awards. Nino DeCosmo, the CEO at Tritium's up for Executive of the Year. Ed Merwin's up for the PID Award. James Johnson up for Best Technical Support again. So these guys, Niagara is all over it. So I guess the other thing we'll say, Kenny, before we move on to the next post and our first guest is that, hey, the voting started. The ballot's right there on the side of the Control Trends website. You can click on that, take that link, blast that out to your network, encourage them to vote, and we will continue to get more and more people on the show. So if you're not sure about a category, you can hold off until you get a chance to see a video on some of our finalists. So, Kenny, speaking of that, we had a really cool thing from our friend Mike Salvador Dali Welch from Control Network Solutions. So he's upgraded his system. And so we have a post up there. You can see the video and read about it, but we also have him as our first guest. So can you give him a quick introduction, please?
I'd love to. We have a very special guest. We have Michael Welch, CEO and owner of Control Network Solutions. And Mike has got a lot of updates. He's got a lot of good things to talk about. Michael, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Ken and Eric. Always a pleasure to join you guys and share knowledge and answer questions and explore what the world's doing to our businesses.
Well, the world doing it to our businesses. You're right, buddy. I tell you what, lots of changes going on. And hey, a lot of changes with you. You seem like you've upgraded the product line a bit and done some cool things. So let's start right off with what's different at CNS.
Well, really what's different is that it was a curious story. At the beginning of this year, we had one of these pop-up exhibition panels you see everywhere at exhibitions. And then right in the middle of this exhibition panel was a compact fluorescent light bulb image. Very bright, very intense, really stand out, looked really, really great about 4 or 5 years ago. But unfortunately, of course, the world has moved on, doesn't it ever, and at ever faster pace. And today, compact fluorescent light bulbs are seen as, bad products based on not because of the energy that they burn. They saved a lot of energy, but of course they are very difficult to dispose of, have dangerous chemicals in them, didn't really create a great color of light, weren't very good at dimming, all those kind of things. And LEDs, of course, as we all increasingly are aware, have become the new light bulb of the 21st century. So we said, right, that CFL has got to go out of that backdrop. That's no longer de rigueur today. And from that simple conversation, we ended up with a complete rebranding of the company, a rebranding of our update, a refresh of the branding of our products, because really Control Network Solutions has moved on from a sort of an engineering jobbing shop, value-added reseller, come distributor in the peer-to-peer intelligent network world, controls world, fully now into the world of smart IoT market disruptive solutions, particularly focused on the world of Niagara.
Mike, speaking of Niagara, tell us. We just talked about the Reformation and kind of the changes to CNS, but the core of your changes are driven by Niagara. I didn't mean to cut you off. What I'm trying to do is just lay it out that you now are an exciting fan. You said that we have a very interesting attitude now that we should consider Niagara 4 to be a leading lighting solution instead of a fix. It's tell us about the interesting things about the Jace 8000 and Niagara 4, the new features.
Well, to be honest, those new features I think are still being unraveled, but certainly some of the biggest features are that the new Jace 8000 is clearly a significantly more powerful processing product than any of the current Jace platforms. So significantly, that's going to allow even more opportunity to connect more systems together whilst maintaining the individual system's performance. And allow the benefits of web converged technology, which is really delivering kind of at the edge of the IoT into the IoT and then all the way into the cloud. The kind of value data information, real-time controls that end clients, so the building owners, developers, managers, major users, are craving for and believe will bring them business benefits. So fundamentally, I think that's the biggest thing. In simple things, there'll be more 485 ports. There'll be more additional ports to connect to other not just existing communication protocols, but to some wireless protocols. There's a kind of a plan to roll those out further. So it's going to be a smarter, more secure, ever more secure product. So I think it potentially bodes hugely well for all of us in the Niagara community as an edge controller, edge collector of value data and information to continue to develop to continue our development of delivery to the IoT. And bear in mind that Niagara has been at the forefront of the IoT of business since it was launched back in 2005. So the truth of it is, all of us in the Niagara community have been in this IoT business a very long time. It's only now that other parts of the globe, other parts of the market, the edges to our markets are beginning to realize the opportunity and potential of that.
Hey, Mike, real quick, how is Niagara 4 being accepted in the UK?
I think, I wouldn't just say the UK, I would just say in the entire sort of Europe, Middle East, Africa, this whole swathe and probably even into the Asia Pacific market. Everybody's, keenly awaiting it. It's been talked about for 4 years, when it was first maybe mentioned as the next step from AX. So I think everybody is excited, anticipated, chafing at the bit, waiting to get their hands on software and hardware, and certainly from a developer's point of view, which is where CNS plays, of course, in the world of Niagara, be able to get our products ported onto this and get a real sense of, what difference that's going to make. What are we going to see that is going to be different? So we're very keen. We've been part of the sort of beta and early development program, supporting Tritium's engineers in understanding how this product is going and helping them guide them a bit from an end user's point of view. So we're pretty excited by what we see. We look forward to finally the Jace 8000's launch, which I guess will be soon.
Very sure. Hey, Michael, one of the interesting things you said previously, and then also in your last post that we had on Control Trends, is that the IoT is very exciting, what it means. And you mentioned that there's good things that happen. There's also bad things that happen. There's some unintended consequences or outcomes that people need to work through. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that IoT, the whole concept.
Well, firstly, my belief and understanding of the IoT is that it's about the seamless access to control and command data, device level data, from anywhere on the internet, which doesn't mean that every device is an IP port on the internet. It means simply what I said, that its data and the commands in real time are accessible via the internet seamlessly. And I believe the original thinkers on the Internet of Things, going back to the turn of the century, that was also their belief. They also never intended or expected anybody to believe that to achieve the IoT of things, every device we have to think about has to be an IP address, on the Ethernet network. So that's a sort of a rounding out of a simple understanding or simple explanation of what the IoT is. To implement the Internet of Things is a very complex process. Just in this conversation we're having right now, think of the number of protocols that are being used, global standard protocols that are being implemented across multiple pieces of infrastructure and hardware in order for us to have this conversation and for this video to be recorded and so on. There are a goodly number. There isn't just one. There are many. And pretty much that's what the IoT is really going to be about. It's going to be many standard communication protocols at some point then very refined for their particular application, then connected to other protocols which are very refined for that particular part of the trip. In terms of the unintended consequences, it's been quite interesting. There's been quite a number of interesting stories this year. Earlier, and you can find it on our Control Network Solutions website, the Royal Society here in London, they held a conference where they were discussing the unintended and unexpected issues around the Internet of Things. And one of the sort of headline statements was that at the current rate of data demand across the Internet, the infrastructure required to support that rate of growth would by 2035 need all the electrical power from all our current power sources in the UK just to power the infrastructure. So forget cooking your Saturday dinner, or forget powering, driving your electric car or going on an electric train. just to power the infrastructure to enable that volume of data to be available. Now, of course, the big data stuff are things like, increasingly we're doing TVs over broadband, we're watching films over broadband, music. These are the big guzzlers of data, but they have an impact on everything else because they're burning bandwidth. The other interesting issue was that obviously we're highly dependent in terms of the core infrastructure, the material that connects all the bits of equipment and transfers this data across the planet. We're very today, reliant on fiber optics. And now it is suggested we're beginning to learn the boundaries of fiber optics. In other words, we're beginning to find that fiber optic pipe is not infinite. And there are challenges having to be addressed already to try and make sure we don't, we get as much bandwidth out of the existing pipes that we have.
Well, Mike, that's kind of fascinating because if you think about it, supply and demand, prices could be going up on this, right?
Yeah. Well, and another interesting story. Literally in the last couple of weeks, the BBC posted a story. I think it was also in our national press. It may have been elsewhere, and it was talking about Google's. I think Google have a Nest product, which is a video camera. And you can use that video camera to monitor people coming to your house, and you maybe allow people remotely to have access to your home if they're delivering or doing some maintenance on your house, whatever you want to do. And the piece of the story really was about the fact that when this device goes into standby mode, the power consumption actually drops very little. So it's about a third. I think it was about a third of a watt power consumption when it was fully up and running. And when it went into standby mode, it was probably just about 10% less. So actually, it was still pretty much on. And most of us, of course, imagine when things go into standby mode that they drop dramatically in their power. But here is the issue: for this camera to work, its application is in the cloud, not in the device. So the device has to be on all the time. In terms of connectivity, in order to do the job that it was purchased to do. It needs to be connected to its application in the cloud. What that also means is that all the equipment between it and the server in the cloud somewhere on the planet needs to be on and powered as well. So it's an interesting story, an interesting sort of notion of we're sort of acquiring all these connected devices. But are we actually saving any energy, or actually are we growing our energy demand? Because the further away the application is from the device that is responsible for the information of that application, then the more things that need to be in place in order for that to happen, and all those things need power. And then, of course, there's the interesting debate: is it any old power, or do we now have to think about resilient power? Should I have a UPS in my home powering my broadband and Wi-Fi, in-house Wi-Fi stuff, because I've got stuff in that now is important, might be part of my security system. So maybe I now need resilient power, not just any old power. So now the cost of providing that power goes up because it's more sophisticated equipment, more maintenance, and so on. So it's these interesting unintended thoughts. Another one is not so much really about the IoT per se, but because LEDs are often linked to the IoT for no good reason I can think of. But you now have an interesting scenario in lighting control where the light bulb is burning less power. So now what that begins to expose is the power consumption of the controls behind the light bulb. So those controls were always there, but because we had profligate light bulbs, we never noticed that the power consumption of the controls, because the dominant power consumption was the light bulb. Now the light bulb has become the much lower part of that equation, even though there are a goodly number of them. Suddenly the controls begin to stand out. So when people do their energy measurements and they say, strange, we seem to be burning a lot of power even when the lights are off, now they're discovering the cost of their controls.
Almost like a plug load type of thing. Almost like the plug loads with like computer monitors and everything else.
Yeah.
Awesome, Mike. This is good stuff.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a bit of a. I mean, we could debate, and I listened to a building operations management presentation which had Rob Knight presenting this week. I was talking to a specialist from Pacific Northwest only yesterday, and all of these conversations were around the IoT of things. The good, the bad, the checks, the balances, the what is it, the what is it not, and so on. Really fascinating debate. We could do this for hours and days, I think. But anyway.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Listen, Mike, our guest is Mike Welch. We like to call him Mike Salvador Dali Welch because he is the king of Dali controls out of the UK, Control Network Solutions. So, Mike, you guys are up for another Control Trends Awards. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, we've got to thank, those that have nominated us. It makes us feel really proud. We feel like winners already. So we're really chuffed. The Controls Trend Award event last year, which I was fortunate to get to. Fortunate because I guess a week late. If it had been a week later, we would have been meters deep in snow. It was a great event, a great evening, a lot of fun. There were a lot of great companies represented, and certainly in the nominations list, there are great companies, great solutions, and great people. So frankly, I think they should all consider themselves winners already. The event in January attached to the HR show in Florida, will just be icing on the cake should that come.
Absolutely. Are you going to be there, Mike? Are you making it to Orlando, you think?
I'd like to try to be there. January's proving very tight right now. But trust me, the idea of coming to see you guys, having some real fun and sunshine and warmth, it's a very compelling argument.
Well, very cool. How's our friend Graham Turner doing over there?
Graham, he's doing really well. Graham, of course, is the CEO and founder of OneSite Solutions, Tritium's distributor here in the UK for the Niagara, sort of what you would think of as Vicon product. We don't have that brand over here, but the Jaces and the associated parts. They're doing really, really well. They've been building up their facilities. In fact, all the videos you can see, including the light show video that you can see on our website, are all filmed at their training center. So that training center is where engineers go for their Niagara training now that Tritium once used to give at Coolum in Sussex. And they also now get that experience of Niagara as a world-class lighting control solution, so they can experience, the RGB light show event as well. They can see all that in-ocean stuff going on, which is used to also interact with with Niagara lighting control. So they can really get an immersive experience of the power of that Niagara platform. So they're doing really great. Their business is growing dramatically. They still have some legacy system integration business from the past, and that's going really well. Channel partners are growing. The demand and interest in Niagara just continues to grow, and I think it's absolutely fair to state that Niagara now surely must be the de facto standard building and lighting controls platform for 21st century buildings, and particularly anybody who's interested in the IoT should be thinking of it.
You're so right, Mike. But I want to go back and visit the ocean. I watched your videos, and they're very, very impressive. I using that smart pad and just demonstrating how much command and control is available on that smart device from anywhere in the world. I really I just love hearing you refresh everybody's understanding of how significant this is, and how it is disruptive. But is Enocean playing the part? If I understood that correctly, that was all Enocean solution. That was you were using a transceiver, and it was all Enocean. It was coming into a backnet. Tell us a little bit more about that Enocean fit.
No, it's even more simpler than that. So what in those videos, really what you're seeing are Dali light networks, which were constructed by OneSite, They assembled them, installed those networks. They sourced the LED drivers. They sourced the LEDs. They sourced the light fittings just to prove that it can be done. Niagara partners can do this stuff. They installed it, and the DALI light fixtures and the DALI networks are connected directly to Niagara.
I see. So you used an Ocean. You used or you use DALI devices with an Ocean capability to the.
No. So DALI is one thing. The Notion devices, again, they are separate. They're not specifically connected to the DALI network, other than they themselves are directly connected via that transceiver into Niagara via Ethernet this time, with an Ethernet driver for an Ocean. And so the input from the sensors and the switches come in onto the wire sheets. What you do with that information is frankly up to you. So you can connect it to plant, you can connect it to light groups that are or software controllers in Niagara that are controlling light fixtures, whatever you like. So at that point, it's just inputs on a wire sheet to control components on the wire sheet connected to groups or light fixtures all on the wire sheet.
So do I understand that, Mike? Normally with like an Ocean, we know we can command an Ocean points through BACnet by doing that translation in that transceiver. So with DALI, it does it automatically. There's no translation. It goes right from the DALI devices onto the network, onto the wire sheet, and they're all controllable as DALI points?
Correct.
Okay.
According to the DALI standard, they're all there.
Awesome.
So they're there as devices. So the lamps themselves appear as device objects on the wire sheet with all their properties already labeled and enumeration checked. So there's nothing for you to do. You have a light, turn it on, turn it off, dim it up, dim it down, ask it a question according to the DALI standard. On the Notion piece, exactly the same thing, this time for Notion. There's no translation. It doesn't go through BACnet. It's directly into Niagara. So again, when you learn in an Notion switch or an Notion sensor, that device appears on the wire sheet. Again, its points are already correctly labeled, enumeration checked. So temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit or degrees C, humidities in percentage, carbon dioxides in parts per million. It's already there, waiting to go. Just connect that data somewhere else. So it means that there's less stuff, and everything is commissioned from within Niagara, and any controls are in Niagara, not somewhere else. So less kit, less equipment, leveraging more power out of the Niagara framework, and better return on investment for every Jace that lands in a building.
Now, you mentioned something about that app being further away. The further away the app is from the cloud, the more devices in between have to be powered, whatever. This eliminates all that because the app is in the device and it's on the network, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We bring the device. So what we do, we would say that the Niagara platform is now the edge device. So and that's the device that clears in IT terms, the fog. It now has value data, not just data that I don't know, I've got this number, I don't know what this number is, I don't know who sent me this number, so I don't know what to do with this number, I have to do now more processing. The number that now appears from the DALI network or from the Notion network using our particular drivers is value data. You know who sent it and what it is. So now you can do local processing, and you can do far away cloud-based processing of that data. You're the end client, the system, somebody else's choice.
Very, very cool. All right, our guest is Mike Welch from CNS Control Network Solutions out of the UK. Mike, for our global control trends community that if they're like us are fascinated with your concept and what you have to say, tell us about your reach. How far do you go? If you all around the world, or?
Absolutely. We have our solutions enable partners to deliver these extended capabilities, whether with lighting control or whether with an Ocean, from your good nation, north to south. So I literally mean from Canada now into Mexico recently, all the way through the EMEA region, from the Arctic Circle down to the Horn of South Africa, into Malaysia, the Pacific Islands, Australia, New Zealand, and now we're also gaining traction in China. So throw Russia in there, and we've sort of covered many bases, not in absolutely every country, but across many countries now.
Very, very cool. Michael, well, listen, last thing real quick. First of all, thanks so much for taking time to be with us. Good luck at the Control Trends Awards. And for our listeners out there, give them a website they can go to sort of connect with you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Before I sign off, let me wish everybody a wonderful festive season.
Nice.
And the very best for 2016. And please go to www.control-network-solutions.co.uk or try www.elitedali.com as another route.
Very cool. And also, Mike is on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can connect with him there as well.
Please do. There are posts and that we put up to try and help the Niagara community expand its knowledge, particularly, of course, in the world of lighting control, where it tends to be less familiar.
There you have it. Mike Welch, Control Network Solutions out of the UK. If you get to be friends with me, you buy a product, you can call Mike Salvador Dali Welch like Kenny and I do. All right, Mike, thanks so much, buddy.
All right, Mike, thanks a million.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye now.
Next up, we have Daikin Applied. Just changed total building automation forever thanks to IoT. Interesting post. Daikin Applied acquired minority stake in a cloud-based building automation company called Riptide. Go to the Control Trends, check it out. It's a great post.
And then our final post before we get to our next guest is we did a repost, if you will, of the interview that we did with Scott Toomey from Temperature Control Systems out of Dallas, Texas, and CSC, who is a finalist, Cory Gunder, who is a finalist in the 2015 Control Trends Systems Integrator of the Year Award, and just fabulous guys. That's one of the most exciting categories, I think, Kenny, this year. It's a new category. We had over 80 people that got nominated, and keep in mind, Kenny and I didn't really nominate anybody, so everybody that was a finalist out of the 80 that got nominated were people that were written in under the other category. So we got the top 7 out of those. I'm calling them the Magnificent 7. And we're getting an opportunity to meet some of those. And Cory Gunder, what a cool company, huh?
I'll say, again, we use the term young guns. And this guy here would qualify because he started when he was 16 years old back in the R2 days and must have really and truly, again, caught his full attention because now he's innovated his whole approach to go from being a technician, pulling the wire, and then at night, learning how to do the front end of it, and then go back and then making things work, equipment working as efficiently as possible, to becoming a consultant. And it's really exciting because not only has he gained the attention of his local markets in Texas, but he's actually expanded, into various parts of the Northeast, New York City for one. But again, he's just a really interesting guy that when we reverse engineer his career and find out how he got into the business, we find out that there's some great linkages there, some very important people he met, some very important organizations, and then basically he's going to be a very successful person. He's going to be hiring people. He's going to be looking for people like himself. So he's a great role model, and it's a very intelligent guy, and it was a lot of fun. But,
well, it really was. And I tell you, one of the really interesting remarks he made, because we asked him point blank on the interview, hey, as successful as you are, you could handle any product line direct. Why do you, why are you going through two-step distribution? Our friend Scott Toomey at Temperature Controls, and he had a couple great answers to that. Number one, he says he gets great support from Temperature Controls out of Dallas. But number two, he says, if I'm handling a product line direct, I have a territory. By handling Johnson or Honeywell through a distributor, I can go anywhere in the world that I want to. And the third thing he said is that owners now, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, are becoming a lot more savvy about wanting to have multiple choices after the job is installed and who they can go to. So, guys like Cory just welcome it. They just say, hey, we're going to do a great job. If we let you down in any way, shape, or form, there are 15 other, people that handle Honeywell and Johnson here in Dallas that can pick up on this. So I think we're going to see more of that trend. And then I think Scott Toomey had probably the greatest quote of all on Control Trends. Do you remember what it was?
He's so full of, I tell you, Scott's one of the most.
Well, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you because it's worth seeing. So we're talking about the young guns. And I tell you what, go check the video out. If you don't roll over on the floor and start laughing with Scott Toomey's quote, I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the Donegal. and Chicks. So, but Scott Timmy's a great guy. But check those guys out too. They're your Johnson Honeywell distributor as well as other stuff. Belimo in Dallas, Texas. Temperature Control Systems. .net or .com, I think. Probably both. I think it's both. But anyway, so that was good stuff. But with that, Kenny, let's get on to our last guest and our girl in the Valley who is out covering ControlTalk. So with that, introduce Therese Sullivan, please.
I'd love to. Our next guest is the one and only Therese Sullivan, the owner-editor of Contextâ from Silicon Valley. She's our eyes and ears, and she knows what's happening. Probably first, because that's where it's all happening out there in San Francisco. Welcome to the show, Therese.
Welcome, Therese.
Yes, hi. Thanks for having me today.
Well, it's glad to have you back. We enjoyed our visit with you before. And since our last visit, you've been out to ControlTalk. So I'd like to start right off the bat and get your take on ControlTalk.
Yes, ControlTalk came to me. It was Realcomm organized everything in Santa Clara. The one day of the conference actually happened on the Intel campus. So they sort of opened up their doors to everybody that comes to ControlTalk, all these corporate real estate folks, a lot of familiar faces and some new faces on the vendor side that showed up at ControlTalk. But it was at Intel in Santa Clara and then moved over to the closest Marriott. They had a great lineup of speakers. Many, again, familiar names from IBCon that they run in June. But this had a real, not even so much Silicon Valley, because I would say another big star there was Daryl Smith of Microsoft, who we've heard from before. But I would say as an overview, it was an inside look at what Google is doing with all its buildings, what Microsoft has continued to do, if we're following that story that really launched 2 years ago, what Microsoft is doing in terms of getting all its campuses under control, and Intel itself. Cisco was there. There was a day of people touring around various campuses, and that's how people got over to Cisco. But as I wrote in my article, it's great to hear from these guys. Many of the people in the audience were more from, I heard questions from people in retail, so managing geographically dispersed small boxes rather than the kind of high-tech campuses that we were being shown. So
very, very, very cool, Therese. And so was there anything in particular that really surprised you, or do you see something that was really new?
No.
Well,
I think that the thing of it was that we were coming back around on promises that maybe were kept, or being kept now. It takes longer than maybe Silicon Valley is used to. And
Therese, let me ask you a question, because you said something that I've been dying to ask it, and I don't get it either. Why is the adoption rate so slow? You have all the superstars out there that produce magnificent data, proof of the concepts, the stuff works. What is wrong with our industries that they don't accept this technology and start deploying?
What I really noticed is that because the Howard and Jim Young, they're great at putting all the new stuff, as Eric asked, like what's new. They keep presenting all this futuristic stuff, but giving the interest maybe in that audience of corporate real estate execs in the nitty-gritty of what it takes to get a building under control. There's not the people. There's the people in the middle of the room. I don't know when they were milling around looking at all the offerings. And at this point in time, we understand they are all great products, and there's various ways to attack this at various levels of price points, and better for different types of equipment or different types of buildings, big or small. I don't know if they're able to differentiate between those solutions yet. They seem more like somebody else is going to handle that. It's like, oh, we've got the broad picture now, but the detail of getting into it, somebody else is going to handle that.
So you think it's maybe paralysis almost, Therese, by maybe having too many choices and the technology's just sort of leapfrogging so quickly that at a certain point in time, you just, like you said, it's great. We understand the concepts, but what do we do? The practicality. I mean, if I get too many choices, I can't make one.
The picture I saw it wasn't even that. It was, they appreciate all the choices, but they are like, there was outsourcing was a big topic. And that seems to be a trend that more and more these top real estate people feel like they can't make these decisions. So they're going to outsource to a CBRE. Now we know that's ESI. Right. They're going to outsource to JLL, which is Jones Lang LaSalle. And then we happen to know that there's a connection with Pacific Controls that JLL has, and that maybe the JLL is training some of its operations and maintenance specialists to step up to the data-driven buildings challenge. But that's where the bottleneck is people saying, well, this is all good, but we're too high level for that, and we're going to outsource it. And yet the number of outsourcers that really have this knowledge too is very limited. So I think that's the choke point, is knowledge. And I know it's always Paul Oswald that makes that point. We need more young guns. Thank you to you guys for always pushing that young guns concept, because I think that's where we have to draw in. Some of the people that I talked to there were like, say, young guns inside JLL. We don't think of them as controls HVAC, but they've got to step over and take this on.
Right. Well, Therese, was that sort of, we wanted to also cover one of your latest articles on buildingcontext.me. That's Therese Sullivan. Definitely check her blog out. Good stuff. But you wrote an article referring to Michael Jordan and angel investors and all that. Is that sort of, did that sort of come out of what you saw it?
Right. That was my metaphoric way of saying the same thing. I was like in a way, came away not frustrated, but kind of like, what's going on here? We've seen what Intel can do and what's, these top companies can do, but how does that affect us? And I thought about the metaphor of Michael Jordan in that back in the day because I'm from Chicago, of course, probably that's why the metaphor came, is he got a lot of people up off the couch. He got a lot of people going, hey, let's play basketball with my children. And I think then there was the shoes became so important. And that's the metaphor I came up with. Yeah, I think these people needed to see, and I did too, what these big companies full of data scientists, companies with all the support they could get, champions at the C-level because they want to be in the Internet of Things. Each one of these companies, Microsoft, Google, Cisco, Intel, wants to make a killing at the Internet of Things. So yeah, they want their own campuses to be showcases. But what does that have to do with everyman? What does that have to do with the common guy? And in effect, the metaphor of Michael Jordan kind of worked out because it is inspiring. I think Daryl Smith has inspired a lot of people with what he's done at Microsoft. He's shown the way. He's proven the theories, as have these other companies. But they're also providing the shoes. They're also providing, like, you can do it too. We're going to compete with each other to make these solutions more and more affordable, more and more plug and play. And so I don't know, do you think that metaphor worked, Ken? That was my metaphor.
Well, I yes, I do. Well, the thing I saw too was the continuum was the just do it with Nike. That's a commanding phrase. Yeah. And to me, in being in the business and watching the progress and the rate of adoption, I'm shocked. It seems like, there were a couple of pushbacks. I remember going to IBCon and listening to one of the top guys, one of the speakers said that it wasn't about saving energy and comfort as much as it was maintaining occupancy. And as much as people love to talk about energy and all this great smart data and value data, that still doesn't put people into our buildings. What puts people into our buildings is the contextualization. It's things beyond just energy efficiency. So it seemed like somehow he was very comfortable with displacing the whole idea of making, reducing carbon footprints and saving energy and enjoying operational savings through smart data or IoT. And he was talking about whatever it took to keep those buildings occupied. And I thought maybe somewhere there's a disconnect. So he was a top guy. He understood everything we said, and he had a real clear understanding of it, but yet that wasn't his highest priority. His highest priority, if he saves, if his cost per square foot is, $7, $8 or something, he saves 50 cents, that's irrelevant if he doesn't have somebody in that building paying rent, So I was fascinated with your article because it seemed to me like we've been doing this real hard now, probably for, I'd say 4 years, where we're at real comms, IB comms, and we're tracking things down. And then you see the rate of adoption being so slow. It's like either they don't, the priority is wrong. Maybe we have a misunderstanding of how important we think we are, how important we think this is. I don't know.
No, I think that it's just a big topic at CoreTech was change management. That's the word that Jim was using from the stage. And they did such a great job. I mean, Jim and Howard always do such a great job. And change management is like a basket term to describe everything you just said, Ken. It's that people are siloed in their thinking and they're not looking at, it's hard to get the concept down through all the various people making the financial decisions, people making the facilities decisions, the outside contractors, their MEP engineers that they generally work with. There's so many people in the design, construction, maintenance, and operations cycle, the life cycle of a building. And they are not orchestrated. Nobody's orchestrating them around the topic.
Well, and it's interesting because you got building intelligent buildings out of Charlotte. Tom Shurtleff and Rob Murchison. It seems like that's where those guys make their living, getting everybody together on the same page and having that conversation.
And you can see how they've ascended in their importance. People get how important what they're trying to do is, and they're major forces at a lot of these shows. But I think you could definitely feel we are on the cusp of change for people understanding that it is not about the pennies that you save in energy. It's even, I don't know, comfort and occupancy. I get that, and I can see why that's so important to corporate real estate types. But I think the even bigger push is going to be when people understand that you can't move on to energy independence, participating in the microgrid, the ADR stuff, which is kind of the early ancestor, I think, of this world that we're going to soon reach in having microgrids. That until you get your building under control and you really understand where your loads are, and you really can, that you shouldn't really go slapping on the renewables. Right.
Well, and Therese, the other big piece that we're seeing, along the same lines is it's become part of your brand recognition. You better have sustainability and a plan, a visible one, is becoming a huge part of your brand as a corporation. So that's a big piece. And Kenny and I interviewed, we had an interesting, I wanted to check this out with you real quick. We had a very interesting interview with a guy named Mike Welch from London, England. And Mike's a brilliant guy, but he brought something up that Kenny had never heard. He is, at least in England and Europe, they are looking at sort of, maybe an unintended consequence of big data. He is saying that they're starting to look at it now at the rate that the number of points are coming in and analytics is being used. That could ironically be one of the biggest energy drains on the grid in England, where there's going to come a point where they're going to say you can't get any more analytics unless something shifts.
Well, ironically, just to continue on that, Therese, what the thing is that instead of all this big data and the processing of all this smart sensors and smart everything, putting that information up into the cloud, to make that cloud work, it's using up all the energy in England. They said that they're just to power the technology, just to power the internet is already maxing their grid out. So the irony was that these applications, in order to get them to the cloud, require all these intermediate devices that require power. And it was just a fascinating overview of, like Eric said, an unintended consequence of IoT. So, and I didn't mean to cut anybody off there, but what I was trying to do is, Therese, you said something about the ancestor of a global ADR. And then we see some of the reasons why when we start doing stuff in a hurry, we don't understand what the long-term impacts are going to be. But this thing that just happened in Paris that you had mentioned earlier before we went on the air, I mean, how can we put this all into a sequential, stream of understanding where you've got IoT coming, we jump on it, we ran with it like as fast as we could, created another consequence, which was we used all this power. These applications aren't very efficient, even though when you get it to the cloud, you can do all this amazing stuff. To get it to the cloud isn't an efficient, like you said one time, nothing's free. Somebody gives you this opportunity, somebody has to pay for that to work, and people have to get a value stream there. But now we're seeing that the things like Realcomm, we're seeing this incredible ideas, all this technology is here, but it's not being implemented. If it is implemented, sometimes it has a consequence we're not really aware of yet. How does all this stuff actually come around? Like when you said the advent of the ancestry to ADR, do you actually see in your dream of dreams that our globe, that our United States, North America, our grid could get so organized and so efficient, and it could be like a universal or global standard where we actually could be before our lifetime see this incredible, the adoption rate increase and it actually work? Is that feasible, or is that just pie in the sky?
I don't think so. I think it's gonna. I think that one of the things that we've just said is that people see it as pennies that are making the decisions. They've been unable to systemize and see the bigger picture, which I think the three of us can agree the bigger picture is you've got to have energy efficiency before you can have energy independence, meaning you've got renewables and you've got your own campus backup plan should the grid go down, your energy independence. And you've got to have energy independence before you can have resiliency. And we're living in a time where we need to march towards that very quickly. And I think our big leaders understand that energy needs to be distributed through these microgrids, and it's going to be the big campuses. Yes, the big tech campuses can do it. I think that the push in 2016 is the cities. If you're watching the Paris stuff, and even it's not that the Paris was culmination, but you just pull up the press releases coming out of the DOE since at least the last 6 months, and it's all about the cities and the cities like Seattle and Austin started it, where you needed to disclose your energy meter data through something like Portfolio Manager. That is being formalized. That's going to be so much more important coming out in 2016, and so it's going from campuses, then the cities. The cities are in competition with each other. I think that's going to accelerate things. So we are getting more leadership. I'm hopeful. And then you've got your Elon Musks, and we know we've got the battery technology, and people are so excited about the electric cars. You guys talked about, and I know Ken wrote about artificial intelligence hitting buildings, but if the other part of Silicon Valley that we saw at Cortec was sort of the uncles and the grandfathers. They weren't the young kids. They were Intel, Cisco, the last generation of Silicon Valley. And where was the new generation that's sitting up in San Francisco? And they have been kind of focused on fluffy stuff, or seemingly fluffy stuff of Airbnbs and how do we get a taxi faster and how do we buy stuff faster? Can we have drones deliver it? And a lot of money has gone into that stuff. I think it's going to shift back in 2016, and maybe some of that artificial intelligence technology that's come out of Google and the people in the race for the electric car, Apple, Google, Amazon, Uber, that they're going to turn around, and because the car connects to the buildings, that some of that energy is going to shift in our direction, because that big battery factory that's going into Nevada that Elon Musk is building, that's so huge. And the things look like, they look like gas pumps. So when we think about our gas stations, how long did that take? Not very long when you think about Rockefeller found oil, and then all of a sudden there were gas stations all over the country. So we could power our cars with gasoline. Now you have these things that look like batteries, and they're going to go into our houses, and they're going to mean that we can store the energy we produce during the day, so that we can access it at night. And if we've got extra, we can sell it to our neighbor. I think that's going to happen. Do you guys?
Oh yeah, I think it is, Therese. Very, very well said. Very articulate. And yeah, I tell you, it's a brave new world, and I think we're just at the tip of it. And so I can't tell you how much we appreciate getting you sharing your insights with us. We're talking with Therese Sullivan, buildingcontext.me. Definitely check her out. Last question before we hop off here, Therese. Do you have what's next on the docket? What's your next post coming out? What's the topic, and when's it going to be out? When can people see it?
Well, I'm working on this Paris follow-up, and to discuss some of the things that I touched on here is looking at this march of high-tech companies working with the big cities, leadership from the DOE, and how controls, there's still the gap we're talking about. The big companies and the government can get together, but they still don't have the brains about how to run a building. And our industry's got to be at the helm of that, because I think it's the only industry that understands how to really run the buildings.
Very, very well
Bravo,
said, Therese.
bravo.
Well said, well said.
At least we got something. Hey, Therese, you said we can have this conversation next year, because you're right. To me, it's just I sometimes have trouble following the sequence of getting somewhere. We've got all this fabulous technology. Every time we turn around, there's a better way to do something, a more efficient way. And the big thing, like Eric and I always talk, it's actually the race to the small spaces where the biggest impact is going to be. The two things I was going to close up with from my side was that we have thermostats are still very, very important, and yet all we talk about is the highest level of technology. Because if we get everybody on the same sheet of paper and actually have people concerned about energy to the point where they can actually put a power generating source in their house, every new build house should have one of these, could have one of these, and get that concept down. And then we have great control over that. So we know exactly what's going on, and all that stuff's intelligent. So the meters are talking to the ADR, so a tone comes down. If we have anybody's in trouble with power, we can redirect it, and we're not going to build any more generation plants apparently. So we have to. The only thing we can do is get efficient, and then that was a really cool thing that you said was that I think it will happen too. I think the green machine isn't ever going to slow down because it can't. But the last thing I wanted to do to throw this thing in a 180 was the 100 smart cities in India. And a place where it's new and they actually have the money set aside. There's some incredible largesse of money, $45 billion or something, to bring 100 cities up into this mentality that we're talking about, using the best of IoT, using the best of ingredients like thermostats, just to make sure that at every opportunity you're putting in the new and impose this kind of a mandated improvement, that this is going to be how we're going to actually control the power in our country, and we're going to set the example. Is that something that you think all this stuff can influence?
Yeah, if what you're saying is it global, and we're looking at those international cities, especially in the developed world, yeah, they could be the case studies that other cities are measuring themselves against. But the money thing is, and that's another thing you brought up, the problem, and why I see our industry at the helm, and this problem Eric brought up in the beginning, why isn't the adoption faster? Why aren't we moving at this faster? It's been bankers who have not trusted energy efficiency savings. They haven't understand there's all sorts of money ready and waiting to spend on this, but they're like, oh, we need if we put on a solar panel, it's kind of like how come solar panels have moved faster, maybe too fast. Bankers understand it. It's going to produce this many watts. The payback period is going to be this long. But in energy efficiency, the bankers are like, how do we measure this? And we want to loan you the money, but how can we hold your feet to the fire that these efficiencies are actually happening? And they don't trust it, or have not until now. So there's been tons of money sitting on the sidelines wanting to invest in retrofits, especially of cities. And this M&V question of, well, how do we know you're telling us the truth? I think it comes down to that. And again, it's our industry. It's the analytics tools that we're putting in. And I don't see it as big data. You guys mentioned that, like, so much data. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. When I work with my clients like Altura, that's done so many amazing buildings, they're looking for the right data. And they're coming up with the question they want to answer, and they're tapping those sensors. It's not like they're blanketing the world with sensors. I think that is the wrong approach. We know our buildings. What information do we really want to know so that we know things are going to stay in commission? And it's that data they collect and that data they analyze.
Very well said, Therese. And sort of along those lines, there's a story that our friend Scott Cochran Supply out of Detroit, it's just what you said, asking the question, what do we need to know? Apparently, JACEs are standard in the big three auto plants all across the world. And the rumor has it, the CEO asked, how much does it cost us to make a car? Nobody could answer that question without spending an enormous amount of money. Our friend Scott Cochran got together with an integrator. They were able to go in with the JACE and give them the answer to that question. So consequently, they're everywhere. But I think it always starts with asking the right question. So I have a question for you. Are you going to be at AHR this year down in Orlando?
Oh, I wanted to come, but I didn't have enough client reasons to come.
Well, if you do come, we'd love to have you as our guest at the Control Trends Awards.
So much fun. I had so much fun last year.
Yeah, so it's good stuff. Well, Therese, I tell you what, we're going to hop off, but hope we get you to come back on in about 5 or 6 weeks. Keep us posted. For our listeners and viewers out there, check her out. Her name is Therese Sullivan. You can find her at buildingcontext.me. Follow her on LinkedIn and automatedbuildings.com, and follow her on Twitter. What's your handle on Twitter? Are you a Twitter person?
At buildingcontext.me. Just at building.
At Building Context, and like she said, automatedbuildings.com. Our friend Ken Sinclair. So
he said, get your articles in early. He wants a Christmas vacation.
He deserves one. He deserves one. Therese, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Therese.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Happy holidays. If I don't talk again.
Happy holidays to you too. There you have it, Kenny. Another week of Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings VideoCast and Podcast. Special thanks to our guest, Therese Sullivan from buildingcontext.me, and Mike Salvador Dali Welch from over the pond. Hope everybody has a great week. Happy holidays, and remember, stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers.